Few people know this stretch of the Patuxant River better than naturalist Greg Kerns. On this foggy September morning, Greg's searching for an elusive annual visitor to these parts, one that's more often heard than seen.
We're on the edge of the marshes here on the Patuxant and on small creeks, on little tributaries where we often see soras and Virginia rails feeding on low tide.
Greg hopes to lure the shy birds out of hiding with the help of pre-recorded calls.
I've got this tape recorder here that we used to use their vocalizations to imitate and attract them, which works very effectively, and they'll actually come out.
Then, 30 yards southeast, Greg spots them. Soar and Virginia rails are migrating, semi-nocturnal game birds that move effortlessly through the jumble of tall reeds.
Rails have the unusual ability to laterally compress their rib cages in to squeeze through the vertical stems of the marsh. So hence the saying, skinny as a rail, allowing them to squeeze these bodies through these tiny little gaps in the vegetation.
They've come to a special section of the Patuxant River, a pristine oasis buffering nearby urban sprawl, Jug Bay Natural Area. Jug Bay's unique habitat, a freshwater tidal marsh, is a cradle of life for countless numbers of birds, animals, insects, and plants.
I think in many respects it rivals what you might find anywhere else throughout the Chesapeake Bay.
Greg Lewis, Jug Bay's facilities manager, wants the park's natural diversity to be a calling card for people, too.
Well, this is just a fabulous wetland area. We certainly want people to come out and take advantage of the resources that we offer to the public and take advantage of the natural beauty that Jug Bay provides.
The Patuxant River, meandering 115 miles through central Maryland, is the longest continuous river in the state. Jug Bay is the headquarters of Patuxant River Park, a park that comprises over 20,000 acres of riverbank and surrounding areas. The park opened its gates in 1962 and is celebrating 50 years of nature conservation and public awareness.
Part of this whole Patuxant River Park and Jug Bay Natural Area and talking about the fabulous resources here is it's also a living laboratory for learning about the bay and all the resources that the river has to offer.
Visitors to this hidden treasure have discovered its riches. Horseback riders, mountain bikers, and day hikers share miles upon miles of wooded trails. Birdwatchers scan the treetops and marsh reeds from boardwalks and observation decks. And from the water, the park shows its true nature. Visitors can take a tour boat ride through the park, and kayakers can easily navigate the channels and back coves. And if you're like Greg Kerns, Jug Bay's resident naturalist, you'll be out on the water at first light. The Soar and Virginia rails Greg's managed to coax from the reeds rely on a special marsh grass, wild rice.
Jug Bay is really a refueling station. This wild rice is nature's gas station when it comes down to it, for these birds to refuel and make these long, dangerous migrations.
The birds' yearly arrival is timed with the ripening of the wild rice in the fall. Nowadays, the birds are increasingly rare to see, but that wasn't the case some time ago.
The Soar rails came in here by the thousands at one time, from the mid-1800s till the mid-1900s, till around, for about 100 years or so. The marsh was teeming with rails, and hunters discovered that and found a rich resource that they could exploit. From descriptions I've heard from old-timers that they were probably shot in the tens of thousands out there over a 2-month period. And there might be at one time 10 to 20 boats push poling around that marsh at one time hunting for the Sora. So they came from all over the East Coast to come here to the Patuxant River, and right here at Jug Bay in particular, because of the vast wild rice marsh.
But a lot has changed in recent years. The wild rice, the reason the rails come here, is in decline, reducing the number of these birds. Historically, the plant had flourished throughout the Chesapeake Bay area. Now industrial and environmental impact and rising sea levels have taken a toll, and the wild rice is losing its grip.
Well, as we all know, the sea level is rising. It's been well documented here around the Chesapeake Bay region in the world, and averaging about 5 millimeters a year. And this, in fact, would shelter the young rice plants, the seedlings, over the first few weeks of their germination period from sunlight, and causes them to disappear.
In recent decades, a resident goose population is eating what remains, adding insult to injury.
Years ago, people let geese go, from the public to hunters and people who wanted them, even the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Well, these geese had literally grazed this. I liken them to a flying cow, essentially. These birds can eat an amazing amount of food. So this is what really has devastated the rice here. I think this looks like a good spot right here to bisect this whole section.
With the help of a few grad students, Greg has come up with a clever plan to keep the geese at bay. Fence them out.
Well, these fences we're putting up is to exclude the geese. We call them exclusion fences in areas. Birds prefer to swim in from the edge of the marsh. So by putting the fence from the edge of the river, this keeps them out.
There's a hole.
Yeah, don't go in that hole.
Keeping the geese out is only half the battle. To fully restore the wild rice, Greg and his interns plant seedlings behind fenced-off areas. The goal is to capture the ripened seeds for spring planting, to stay ahead of the game.
There you go. So you want your hand right next so you can do this. See how I'm pushing it in? And then once it's in all the way, now take a cable tie and make sure you seal it, because you don't want the seeds to fall out of the bag.
Being able to see, like in the fall when all the birds start coming back in, they wouldn't be here if we hadn't been doing this and this project hadn't been started. I mean, it is really gratifying, yeah.
This project has been recognized over the last few years as one of the most successful wetland restoration projects in the state. So we really turned the tide here and come a long way, and people are now seeing this as a great example that you can make a difference.
It's through these restoration efforts the Jug Bay Natural Area will forever remain a jewel in Maryland's conservation crown.